Good evening. The Rancho Public Board of Education meeting for Monday, August 22nd, 2022 is now called to order. If all would please arise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can you take a roll call for us?
I sure can. President Galvin?
Present.
Vice President Calvin?
Present.
Secretary Scott?
Present.
Board Member Tripp?
Present.
And Board Member Tyler? You have a quorum, 5-0.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting tonight. I am Board President Amanda Galbraith. I'll be conducting the meeting tonight. We will go ahead and start our evening with some introductory comments by our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Visu Cleveland.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for being with us this evening. I did it this time, I remembered to turn it on. I want to just hit a few highlights of some things that have been going on, and then speak to a couple of items related to the agenda. So I want you to know that one of the real bright spots is that student transportation has made really considerable progress. And while there are still occasions and problems, it is improving daily. I just want to thank the leadership, Lynn Carl and her staff for staying the course, and the drivers and others for working hard to reduce the number of problems, situations that occur daily. And you know, it's been just an incredible uphill battle, and they really are to be commended for just staying the course and improving that situation day by day. I do want you to know our COVID cases are up this week. Normal precautions are advised. The situation really was expected. It's not surprising as our students returned to classes and we began to have some large events across the district. I would just remind everyone we are still required to adhere to the PED toolkit directives should those numbers continue to rise. But we're hoping we'll have a sort of bubble up front and it'll kind of settle down again. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. In New Mexico, textbooks and supplementary materials are ordered by each district, but are shipped to a centralized book depository. And it is, in my opinion, a rather antiquated approach, especially for urban districts. But all of the materials go to one location. They're terribly understaffed. Then you have to go and pick up your books and you bring them back, and then you have to separate them all out, and then you have to deliver them out to all the schools. And so it is quite an undertaking, especially in years when we have very large adoptions like our English language arts, which is our largest, which took place this year. And so it really is, it is an incredible job. You can get them shipped directly to schools, but it's more costly. And we're going to continue to try to work with the state to reconsider the process because it really is very cumbersome. I want you to know we were the first to order, and we ordered the moment that we had a chance to do that, and yet we were still getting materials as of this last week, and there's still some slowly coming in, but we're making great progress. As I said, it arrived late for English language arts reading, but they are being distributed, and this picture is not an exaggeration of what it looks like when you have materials for over 8,000 children come in. And of course, all of our elementary children were impacted by this adoption. And so it was quite an undertaking, but I do want to thank the people who just put out an extraordinary effort to get these materials out to our elementary campuses. And so I want to first thank Carol McDowell. She is Carl's executive assistant, and she is the one who coordinates the ordering and distribution of all instructional materials for our district, and she does an absolutely phenomenal job. And it is just a huge undertaking. There were others who jumped in and made it happen. That was Tracy Todd, Michelle Munger, Todd Resch, Heidi Whirling, Karen DeLay, and Joy Morales. And everyone spent a lot of additional time to get the materials out. I also wanted to mention Todd Doss in facilities. Todd is the one that went to the warehouse and picked all of them up by himself. He got them back to the district. After everyone went through and sorted them and marked them for schools, he got them out to the individual schools. It was a call way beyond the call of duty for all of these folks who were really busy, but they were just determined to get the materials out to our teachers. So again, thank you to everyone who stepped up and was part of getting this issue resolved. On staffing, human resources continues to make progress in filling our vacancies. This is the breakdown for the unfilled positions. It's so different than last year. It's just a wonderful situation. We're down to just right now 17 classroom teachers. We still are working on educational assistants. We have an advertising process going on right now to try to reach out to people across the metro area. And it really, we're still struggling with that one area. We're down 4 custodial, and I can't remember how many years it's been since we've had 0 bus driver vacancies right now. So again, congratulations to everyone, including our principals, who worked hard at the school level, as well as our staff in HR for just a phenomenal effort there. We have an improved state economic forecast, and if you saw that in the paper, you will know that we have a considerable amount of revenue coming into the state. It would just be wonderful if the state would consider improving the salaries for our educational assistants. Salaries are still very low in our state. That's one of the reasons we have such a difficult time filling those positions. And most of our educational assistants serve children with disabilities. They are very important jobs in our school district. And so I hope that we might see an improved compensation package for them coming from the state. It has to come from the state because they're basically passing on what we get and we generate as it is now. I have mentioned this before, but we're really pleased with our talent pool this year. And again, that just doesn't happen by accident. A lot of time and effort and work goes into that. Recruiting and talking to people. One of the things I think was just phenomenal this year in HR was they just turned around calls and responses very quickly. So people didn't have to wait to hear from us. And that let people know that, we really wanted them in our district. We really were going to try to get them an answer as quickly as possible. And I think that that very efficient process is one of the reasons we were successful. And the same for principals who were willing to come in on their own time during the summer and talk to people and get those positions filled. We have some commendations this evening. We have first for fine arts. We received actually 4 important recognitions this year from the New Mexico Music Educators Association. And the first 3 are going to be presented in a few minutes by Kurt Schmidt, who is, of course, our Director of Fine Arts for Rio Rancho Public Schools. And once again, this is not the first time, Rio Rancho Public Schools has been awarded the Award of Distinction for our music programs. And that's an incredible, it's an incredible accomplishment, especially to have done that more than once. We have recognition for Daniel Holmes with Cleveland High School Wind Symphony, and Josh DeMay, Assistant Director. Daniel's the Director and Assistant Director for the 2023 All-State Honor Band. And then one of the best that we have every year is a new and emerging music educator. This new person across the state is the future of our programs. And it's exciting to see them coming into the profession. It's wonderful to recognize their accomplishments. And you'll hear a little more about that as well. And then a very wonderful recognition. Kurt Schmidt has been nominated as the New Mexico Administrator of the Year. And I will say a few more about that when that comes up on the agenda. Okay, we are now, as the new year is underway, we will be starting our departmental reports. Safety and security is certainly a topic that is always on the minds of our staff, our students, and our families. And so for that reason, this department was selected to be the first presenter of the departmental reports, because I think there's a lot of interest in the community. What are we doing to keep our students and staff safe? This presentation will provide an overview of operational processes and procedures that are designed to increase school safety, as well as explain some of the new initiatives they have in 2022-23 school year. And Mr. Rancho will also discuss key partnerships that support the department. He will talk to you a little bit about the structure and the staff that we have in that department. And very importantly, I discuss with you the recruitment, selection, and training of personnel. The goal is to provide a secure working and learning environment, and especially with the support of quality and well-trained staff. Safety technology has seen many major advances that will also help us enhance our efforts. Before the board meeting this evening, the board saw a demonstration on a potential product that had been identified by staff, always with a thinking process of continuous improvement. And then finally, he will discuss a little bit about some of the challenges ahead for the department, and there are always some. Okay, our first order of business after reports is general obligation bonds. The board is going to be asked to consider adoption or approval of the Series 2022 General Obligation School Bonds. That includes a notice of sale resolution, parameters and delegation resolution, and a preliminary official statement. This presentation will be provided by David Vigil, who is our Executive Director of Finance, and Eric Harrigan, RBC Capital Markets, and is a financial advisor to the Rio Rancho Public School District. I would remind the board this sale was authorized in a special election that was held on November 5th, 2019. So we're getting toward the end of the last bond adoption. We have a memo of understanding with the county. The board is being asked to consider approval of a memorandum of understanding between the county and the school district. The board needs to take action in order to formally accept a $2,000 grant to fund the Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Mathematics Lab, which we call the district STEAM Labs, for Puesto del Sol Elementary. The proposal will be submitted by Janice Schmaltz, our Elementary School Improvement Officer, and Dana Petro, who is the principal of Puesto del Sol Elementary School. And they will be sharing with the board the school's exciting plans for this new lab. This is a wonderful program upgrade, and it will support the students and families at Puesto, and we sincerely thank the county for their ongoing support of our schools. We will have a presentation on our facility use agreement. This presentation will be made by Bruce Carver, who is our Executive Director of Athletics for Rio Rancho Public Schools. His department oversees the facility use agreement for all district facilities, not just for athletics. Many of the requests for use of our facilities have historically been for athletic groups, for churches, and community groups, or other meetings. The use of district facilities decreased during the pandemic, and so during the last 2 years, we saw the number of groups asking to use our facilities go down. However, there's again renewed interest and more requests are coming in. So this agreement is designed to cover the costs for these outside groups using our facilities, and I really want to stress the goal is to cover costs. It's not a profit-making venture, but it certainly helps us pay for things like utilities, cleaning crews, and the actual costs for using the facilities. Rio Rancho Public School sponsor groups are never charged for using our facilities after hours. Neither do we charge any governmental entities, for example, like legislative forums or other government-related requests. Again, there's a nominal increase request this year due primarily to increased costs for utilities, custodians, and security. We have 7 proposed policy changes that are being presented this evening. All of them are first readings, therefore no action can be taken on any of them this evening. First readings are designed to allow for an initial board review and input. The first reading also provides the board with 2 weeks to carefully review the changes, as well as to receive public input on any of these items. Some of the changes reflect state regulatory requirements, and some may reflect recent state and federal court decisions. And so the proposed changes this evening are the following. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we have one for transportation, we have student rights and responsibilities, we have a student behavior, restraint and seclusion, and several related to the functions of the board. And so there'll be an opportunity to go through all of those this evening for initial input from the board. And then the last, President Galbraith asked if board members would come prepared to suggest resolutions to be taken to the New Mexico School Boards Association convention. And so these are not coming from me, but these are things that the board has talked about at various meetings over the last several months. So I just listed them as maybe a way to prod your memory about some of the things that you've expressed concern or interest in. And so there's a list there of things like startup for CTE, or a dedicated revenue stream for ongoing programs that you have to support a CTE program. We learned last week there are only one of 6 states in the United States that does not have both of these things. Does not have a startup and does not have a dedicated revenue stream to maintain CTE programs. And so we definitely are in a very small minority. And then, the ones that come up every year, full funding for transportation and instructional materials. You're talking about instructional materials earlier, well over $1 million short from what the state gave us in terms of the costs. And they're now discovering some things were not even included that we had hoped were going to be included, to the tune of maybe another $500,000. It's just imperative that the state pay for that. It's just hard to come out of classrooms when our schools are already fairly stretched. I mentioned earlier one that I hope maybe the board might consider. That's an improved compensation package for our educational assistants. One of the urgencies of that is that in some cases they're written into IEPs. And if we can't deliver those services, then we have to pay for them another way. That's generally very expensive. But more importantly, children aren't getting some of the things they really need. And so I don't know that we're going to be able to continue to bring in educational assistants if we're not able to improve their compensation. I do think maybe one resolution instead of an ask might be a thanks. And that might be a thanks to the legislature for improving compensation for teachers and others this year. It has made a world of difference, and I think it's always nice to say thank you for that decision. And then we mentioned earlier, certainly increased funding for school safety, staff and equipment. And we have talked about things such as early childhood centers and, perhaps a need for eliminating an offset or increasing the state share, or maybe even doing away with the match, but finding some funding to build additional early childhood centers. And then the last that we've talked about some is just improving the funding for maintenance of our existing facilities. We have some SB9 money, but it's just a drop in the bucket based on the needs compared to the needs that we actually have. So here are just some things that you might want to think about. You may have others that are not on the list, but I just tried to go back and kind of look at things that the board had discussed in the last several months. So that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? Any questions? No questions. Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Claudia, that last slide, when we get to resolutions, can you just kind of have it available that we can pull that back up?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. For our next item, we will approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations.
Madam President, Board Member Jessica Tyler will make a motion to approve prioritized agenda and proposed time allocation.
Board Member Noreen Scott, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Noreen Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. For our next portion is our public comment. So we did not receive any public comment signups previous to the start of the meeting, but we did receive public comment through our form that's on our board page. We just received one public comment this time by Chance Barnett in regards to the fees for our facilities that we'll be talking about tonight, asking that we forego those fees and allow our community to be able to use the fields in our outdoor facilities. If anyone else would like to give public comment, we love receiving that public comment. You can either sign up prior to the meeting here in our boardroom, or you can go to our board page and fill out the form, and we read through all those public comments and also summarize them here in our meeting. So thank you. Okay, next is the best part. So we will now go to our commendations. Our first commendation, and we'd like to invite Kurt Schmidt to come up, and those who he would like to have come up with him will be on the New Mexico Music Educators Association Award recipients.
I'll wait for the slow walkers.
Do we want to go up there?
President Galbraith, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland. Tonight we received several, I want to offer commendations, several awards that we've won, that the district has won, and entities and individuals within the district from the New Mexico Music Educators Association. The New Mexico Music Educators Association, or NMMEA, is not to be confused with NMAA. NMMEA is the state organization of the National Association for Music Education, which for over 100 years has fostered and dealt with all aspects of music education in the United States. So annually, the NMMEA puts out several awards and recognitions for individuals and groups, and we have once again received several of these awards. The first one is for the district itself, which is the Award of Distinction, which Dr. Cleveland mentioned. This is the third time the district has earned this distinction. The other years were in 2014 and 2020. And this is made annually to an outstanding school district that has demonstrated support for and commitment to high-quality music education programs district-wide. And the superintendent and the board should feel very, very proud of this recognition, because it is a testament to the priority, the import that the board and the community put into music education and the arts in general. It's been a priority since the inception of the district, and we look forward to continued support. So, but today I've got several teachers, music teachers here, and surprisingly, I put out the call to all the teachers and said, "Come to the board meeting," and somehow they're representative of all the all music branches we have in the district. And these are the people for whom this award really is meant, because they do the work day in, day out with their children. They are the most creative and dedicated, hardworking, amazing people I've had the pleasure to work with over my years. And they just go above and beyond. They're innovative. They always come up with new ideas. Most of these ideas involve their own time. They're not compensated for it. So, our thanks go to them. I want them, since there are so few, if they can briefly introduce themselves and where they teach and what they teach. We'll start with Ms. Kendall, whom you'll meet later.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Kendall. I'm a choir teacher and piano teacher at Rancho High School.
Hi, my name is Brendan Ray. I am the orchestra director at Rancho Middle School, and I am an elementary orchestra specialist at 3 elementaries in our district.
I'm Donna Schmidt, and I teach at Rancho Middle School band. Micah Proctor, Lincoln Middle School choir.
Daniel Holmes, Cleveland High School band.
Drew Witchman, Seattle Russell, elementary music teacher.
I'm Sam Nesbitt. I'm the elementary band coordinator, and I teach at various schools all over the place.
And gets mileage, so. So again, we're very proud of our teachers in the district, the support from the teachers and the students, and of course the students are the beneficiaries of the multiple programs we have in the district. So for that award, I'll pause for any comments or questions you might have, or barrel through.
Do you guys want to give just a quick opportunity to over that, or do you want to keep going? Okay, keep going through it.
Okay,
Let's
all right.
We'll say all of our thanks to everyone.
Perfect. The next recognition, Mr. Holmes step forward. The Cleveland High School Wind Symphony has been chosen as the 2023 honor band. And this is a blind process where they're chosen from many fine groups across the state. So the second time in the district's history, the high school concert band has been chosen for this honor. So it's a very big deal. And Daniel's one of the best teachers we have in this district. His groups, the sounds they make, their artistry is bar none, and they have really established themselves as a premier ensemble in the district. All his ensembles, and Mr. Jume can't. Mr. Jume is not here tonight. That's Mr. Holmes' partner in crime, and knowing these two, they make a great team, and they team teach almost everything. So it's Mr. Jume is also be credited for this. But also, lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, one other thing. The Cleveland Wind Symphony is also was recognized last spring as the winner of the NMAA, not the NMMA, but the NMAA state band competition. They were the first place winners for that. So it's really no surprise that they're not band this year, not that the two are related. So I'll invite Mr. Holmes to say a few words.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Dr. Cleveland and the fantastic RRPS board for all their support of our music programs. Thank our wonderful and ever so supportive Fine Arts Director, Mr. Kurt Schmidt. A huge shout out and thank you to Mr. Scott Effentranger and the administration at Cleveland High School and our band booster board and parent support. We're very blessed to have support from just every single direction, and we are so honored to be able to represent the district at the NMEA All-State Conference. Thank you.
Yes, they will give a concert during the All-State Convention in January, so I'll put it on invitation. I hope several of you can come hear them. You will be absolutely amazed at what they do. Lastly, not least, is the new and emerging teacher of the year, Ms. Rebecca Kendall, who we met earlier. This award is a relatively new award by the NMEA. I'll get confused now. NMEA. It's only been given for the last 14 years, and Rio Rancho Public Schools must be doing something right because 6 of the last 14 recipients have been Rio Rancho Public Schools employees, and 7 of them have been employees for our school district at one point or another. So we're hiring right, and as Dr. Cleveland said, we're hiring for the future because these are some of the most talented people we have in music education in the state. As she said, she is the choir and piano teacher at Rio Rancho High School. I'll embarrass her a little bit because I've known her since the day she was born. In fact, she's got a great picture of me holding her on my lap. But I won't embarrass her. She's been teaching us for 2 years. She did her student teaching with us with Zero Flam at Cleveland High School, and Cherokee Randolph at Cleveland High School. Just amazing teacher. To go to her classroom, you'll see immediately high energy, high student engagement. Her choirs in the very first concert after she was hired just sounded remarkably fantastic. So she's a real gem of a teacher and a real great employee. She also teaches with the UNM Prep School, I believe, music prep school at UNM in her free time, whatever she has that free time. And she's an equally talented singer, violinist, and pianist. So if maybe we'll move her around to orchestra and piano. So. And perhaps at a future board meeting, you'll be able to hear her choir maybe sing the national anthem as in the past. So I'll let her say a few words.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo what Daniel said. Thank you so much to our superintendent and our board for the continued support of fine arts. It's really the greatest district to teach in as a music teacher. And thank you to Kurt Schmidt, who helps us with literally everything. I also wanted to shout out my principal, Ryan Kettler, and just thank all of the choir teachers in my district who have been helping me throughout this learning process of becoming a teacher. And yeah.
Now it's time for questions or comments.
Thank you. First of all, Dr. Cleveland, do you want to have an opportunity?
Well, congratulations to all of you, and thank you all for being here this evening. You are truly one of the crown jewels of the school district, and we're so proud of our fine arts program. And it brings a lot of students to this district. They move here to participate in these programs. And so we thank you for the great job that you did. I would also just say, and I have a few other comments about Mr. Schmidt, but you don't get this kind of stuff without a tremendous amount of hard work. You're not just sitting there hoping someone's going to apply on the website and looking for someone to drop in. And so goes out and he looks and searches and finds good people and encourages them to come to our district. And that's hours and hours of work. But you can look at the results and you can see what a fabulous group of people we have. And that hard work is definitely paid off. So thank you all for being part of our district. Thank you for all that you bring to the students and families and community on Rio Rancho.
Your turn.
You're probably hearing a lot of thank yous tonight, and I just want to say they're sincere, and thank you for loving our kids. Thank you for teaching our children. Thank you for being just the great people you are. Thank you very much.
Just going to echo what Karen said. Thank you.
Jessica?
Just what a great opportunity it is to have the recognition shined up on you all tonight for the hard work that you do year in and year out. And so, bask in the glory for a few minutes, because I know you have a lot of hard days where you think, why didn't we just, what is going on? Why did I choose this? And so it's for times, times like this are maybe few and far between, but know that you are, like Dr. Cleveland said, one of the cornerstones and a gem of our school district, and we're all very proud to be part of it, and you guys help make that easier. So thank you for everything that you do.
All right, Scott.
I'd just like to say thank you for all your energy and effort that you bring to our kids every day. Thanks.
And I just want to say thank you all too. I had the opportunity of going to Miss Kendall's one of her concerts last year, and it was so well done, and your students love you so much. And it shows for all of you. Mr. Drew, as I know you, I believe he's taught at Stapleton, where my kids attended, and they loved you. And for all those who work in our elementary, it's a huge thing, because I know you're working your days, and then you're going to all those elementary schools. But as a mom who participated in that for many years, it means a lot to those kids, and all of our music programs do. And so I just want to say thank you so much for providing this service in our district. It is wonderful, and you are all wonderful, and keep bringing your friends, those who are really good, into our district. We need them, so thank you so much for being here tonight. You're staying here. Or do you have more that you want to say before?
Oh, you've got to say. I've got to say.
I know. Okay.
I just year after year, Rio Rancho Public Schools is recognized for the quality of its fine arts programs. And it does come from a tremendous amount of hard work and dedication. Kurt Schmidt was previously the band director at Rio Rancho High School at a time when the band was so large that we're falling off the end of the field, literally. He had some incredible bands through those difficult years at Rio Rancho High. He was also an assistant principal at Eagle Ridge Middle School, and of course he is currently the executive director of fine arts for the school district. As it was previously stated, Rio Rancho is once again receiving the NMEA District of Distinction Award, and that's a direct reflection of his work as well as the work of the others who are here this evening. But it's just phenomenal. And so he has received the New Mexico Music Educators Association Administrator of the Year for the state of New Mexico. It's so well deserved. Program excellence is dependent upon strong leadership at the district level, which in turn provides that strong support for the school level. High-achieving programs include strong recruitment and selection and retention of talented teachers and directors. And not only do they come, but they stay for a long time in most cases. I just want to congratulate Mr. Schmidt and really offer my sincere appreciation for all of his hard work and dedication to keeping our fine arts programs as an outstanding and recognized program, but most importantly, one that benefits the students in this community, their families, and definitely the larger community. So, Craig, thank you so much, and it's just incredible work that you do. He's involved in so many different things, and I just sometimes wonder how he keeps it all together. But again, congratulations, and I'll let the board add any comments to that, and then we'll let Kurt say some things if he would like to do so.
First, I feel like it's Kurt, if you would like to say some words before the board talks, that would be wonderful too.
Sure, but then I won't have the opportunity to correct it.
That's always easy.
I've spent, this is my 24th year in the district, and I spent my entire professional career in New Mexico in Rancho public schools, and I would think of teaching or teaching and being an administrator in any other district in the state. This is the best district to be in the state. I really feel that. And our own kids went through the programs here, all the parents' programs. It's just been a wonderful home. And it's you know, putting back on the board and administration, the superintendent. It's been very supportive of all these programs for years. And that's the real reason. The community, we should say the community is the real reason that they want these programs, and so we deliver it to them. And I think one of the most telling things is that nearly a fourth, nearly a quarter, if not more, 25% of our arts teachers are alumni of the Rancho public schools. And so that's a testament that they want to come back and get back to the community. So I think that's pretty telling of the support we have. So I'm just very fortunate to be here, and as I joke, sometimes the association gets it right, sometimes they don't. I'm not sure about in this case, but they're as deserving or more deserving people than I am to have gotten this award. So I stand among very, very wonderful people, and any success I've had has been the direct result of previous directors like Dr. Rao, Debbie Fleming, who also served in this position, and I try to build on their work.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So, Director.
Kurt, thank you and your wife for 24 years of service to our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your support, and really I'm a big fan of hard work pays off for you and all the other individuals. Thank you so much for all you do. Really appreciate that.
Jessica.
Yeah, just thank you. And again, Dr. Cleveland stated that we obviously strong leadership, and she's also stated, how you're just everywhere. And I'll tell you from my short time on the board, with all the commendations and so much of what we see in the community event, you're always part of that. And so it's great to see. So we're very lucky to have you. So congratulations.
Congratulations on a great job. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. And I just want to echo that, every concert, every time I go, and football games, you are always there. So it is so wonderful to see you. You are truly a fierce advocate for our music programs. I love your passion as you come into the board and ask for different things, and you give just such, and I think they would all shake their hands, you just give such great support to the teachers in our schools, and you must have a really good wife and family that sits right behind you. So we want to thank them too, and so thank you so much, and I hope that we have so many more years to work with you and have you with us. But it's been fun to see you as when I was a student, you were band director, when my kids were in school, you were assistant principal, and then as I came on the board, you're here in the district office, and so it's been really fun to see your career go through and be with our Rancho Public Schools, so thank you.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again.
He was there on Friday night, by the way.
Yeah.
He was at the game on Friday night. And, so, he's, and he doesn't have enough to do, so he's also on top of everything else, working on his doctorate in university. So it's amazing. He really is a very disciplined individual.
And we are blessed to have him, so thank you. Okay, we will now move into reports. And once again, we just want to thank everyone for being here tonight and for those commendations. But we'll move into our reports. We have reports on safety and security update by Sal Maniaci, our Executive Director of Safety and Security.
Thank you, Madam President, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board. I would like to request to go sometime after Kurt. Please tell that. So I'm here tonight to give you an overview of the Safety and Security Department, kind of where we've been and where we're going. Basically, the Safety and Security Department consists of two divisions. We have the Access Control Division, which consists of a Access Control Coordinator and a locksmith technician. And then we have our Uniform Division, which is split into two districts, the North and South. And that division consists of 2 managers, 2 lead officers, and then 31 security officers. And of those 31 security officers, we have about a 50-50 mix between armed and unarmed security staff. So when I prepared this plan, took into consideration the 4 pillars of our strategic plan, which includes staff excellence, engagement and innovation, safety and wellness, and operational excellence. So talking about staff excellence, and we talked a little bit about recruiting earlier, recruiting is such a large part of what we do with safety and security because that's the meat and potatoes of safety and security, right, our security officers. And we've worked really hard to recruit the best. As you can see that poster we put together, Beth Pendergast helped me with that, and it's ended up in a lot of places. It's ended up at police supply areas, briefing rooms throughout the state, New Mexico State police offices, APD, Romeo County. So we've really tried to draw from a lot of departments because I found in my tenure here that diversity really does work. When we have officers from different agencies, they bring different ideas, they bring it together, it really meshes into a pretty cohesive unit, and the ultimate goal is keeping our staff and students safe, so it works really well. I'd like to say, I'm sorry, can you go back?
Oh, sorry.
One of the things that on the recruiting side is, and Dr. Cleveland mentioned it on several occasions, that we don't fill positions sometimes because we just don't find the right fit. And I'm not going to put somebody in a hole that doesn't fit. I'm going to put a round hole in a square peg or a square peg in a round hole, wherever it goes. Because they need to be, I want people who are skilled, experienced, talented, still have the ability to do the job to the best of their talents. But they have to be a good fit. They have to be that kind of personality that's going to work well with our students and develop those relationships and develop a rapport with staff and students. So it's a tough fit to find sometimes. And we work really hard to put the best people in those spots. And moving forward to training, but you're still killing me.
Tell me when to change it, sorry.
So looking at training, training is such an important part of what we do because, again, we talk about our folks having the ability and the skills to protect staff and students. And one of the things I'd like to say that my staff has done a great job is improving our training. A couple of years ago, House Bill 129 came out through the legislature that puts some training requirements on any armed school security officer program. And the beauty of that is that essentially they took Rancho Public Schools playbook and turned it into law. And I think that's something for this district to be very proud of. So when that House Bill 129 came into effect, we were already doing everything they asked for. The only thing it just mandated it statutorily. So we're doing everything that they require us to do and then some. But one of the challenges that we have in the training is that we're so staffed so tightly that I can't pull a segment of our security officers away from their assignments and send them to training. So we have a very narrow window to get that training done, and that's before school starts. And I want to put a shout out to, first of all, before we get further, I just want to say we wouldn't have that demonstration today if it wasn't for Todd Doss. So I put out because Todd's a great guy. So what we had to do is we had to come up with a creative way to get our officers trained. So we worked really hard during the summer to come up with a training curriculum that we can condense into 1 week. And let me tell you something, I have some folks that work for our district in the Safety and Security Department that spend a good portion of their summer volunteering their services, putting together that training curriculum. And I'm really proud of those guys. They do a great job. And what's really amazing is that before we came to school, we had a meeting as the last day of our training. And so many of the officers came to me and thanked me, and they shouldn't be thanking me, they should be thanking their trainers. But they were so glad to attend that training. And that says a lot, because training is a big motivator, especially for folks and I say law enforcement, but in the security area, because all of our security officers are private law enforcement. It means a lot to them when the district takes the time, and takes the energy, and has the support to conduct that kind of training. So what we have to do in order to meet some of those training requirements, we're obviously excited about it. We're so good. We started being creative when we saw that a lot of police departments throughout the state during COVID went to a system called the Academy. And what it is, it's an online virtual training system that gives our officers the ability to get that mandatory training online virtually. This program actually records it, it gives them an exam at the end, and it documents the training. So if we ever have to provide that training for any kind of litigation, it's available and it's well documented. We also use that program to to be a kind of a document management system for us as well. So again, I just want to hit on the point that this district is so fortunate for the dedicated staff that we have. Like I said, they take care of that training, and they do a great job. They go out there with their personal vehicles, they call out all the targets, we put the training together. You can see just an example of it there. It's a very well orchestrated event. I'm really proud of them and glad to do the job they do. Thanks, Claudia. So engagement and innovation. I think our demonstration today is an example of that. You know, the safety and security department is anything but stagnant. That's one thing I will not allow. You know, we are always trying to think of better ways and new ways to keep our staff and students safe, whether it be technology, whether it be hardening, whatever the situation may be, we're always going to look forward and we're always going to look for that new way to make it better. I thought the evolved weapon detection and scanning system is a great way of being proactive. We're going to talk later about being proactive and how we're really making that shift. We want to keep the threat from getting in our schools. Way before, we want to make sure we put every detection system, every hardening system in place so we keep our staff and students safe. Next slide, Claire. Thank you. Safety and wellness, you know, that's why we're here, right? To keep our staff safe, keep everybody well. So ensuring the wellness of our staff and students is paramount to every member of the safety and security department. That's why we come to work every day. And on the safety side or the wellness side, we talked about like first aid. I remember when I was in law enforcement, first aid, when I first started, was so basic, and I remember getting to a scene and really not knowing what to do. So we know that our security staff, sometimes they're the first folks out there. They're the first folks making contact with somebody who may be injured or having a medical emergency. So we made a commitment to our folks to give them the best emergency medical training we could. So we utilize the services of a certified tactical emergency medical paramedic, and he does some great things for us. He teaches our folks how to bleed with the proper use of tourniquets, delivery of Narcan if we should have a student who overdoses on drugs. So we do this, and I'll tell you, the officers really appreciate it. They like having that advanced level of training because they know they're the first ones there, and they appreciate the fact we're giving them those life safety skills to make a difference. Operational excellence, that's something that, again, that we take so serious. And one of the things that we've implemented is we do a periodic review of our process and procedures, because this is what our officers use to kind of guide them as they're performing their duties. You want to make sure, number one, that our process and procedures are compliant and consistent with statute and rule. The last thing we want to do is have something in writing that is contrary to what's out there. So we conduct those reviews periodically. And then we use our V Academy program to send those out there so that the security officers can read them, they can acknowledge that they understand them, and then we document the fact that they have read that process and procedure. And also, you know, what I found is as we review those process and procedures, we did one recently for search and seizure, and we made some really good changes there. So much that we actually presented those changes to DLT during our district leadership team meeting because we felt that it really impacted the schools on a first-hand basis. So that's what I love about that review too, is it gives us an opportunity to look at what we're doing, change whatever we have to change for best practices and keeping our students and staff safe. Can you go back?
Go like this, Sal.
Next one, continual site security assessment. This is something that's been done since the very beginning, and this is something we really harp on because, you know, we look at some tragic situations that have occurred recently, and you know what? We have to keep the perimeter of our schools secure. And the way we do that is through constant assessment. You know, we want our security staff, as well as our instructional staff, to always be vigilant and cognizant of what's going on the outsides of our schools. So one of these requires our patrol duties for our safety and security officers. They are always looking at the perimeter, always looking for gates that are secured, doors that are secured, and more importantly, to let us know when something isn't working right. Because if we don't know about it, we can't fix it. And fixing it is real important, so we want to make sure that we get that communication open. And then focusing on proactive measures, and that's something that I take so serious, and so does my staff, is not being satisfied with what we have. Always wanting to do better, wanting to do more, and make our schools safer. You know, one of the conversations that we have on morning briefings, and I don't know if it's just that or if we're all getting older, but I don't sleep very well anymore. And it's always like, hey, last night I couldn't sleep and I thought of this, or last night I couldn't sleep and I thought of that. And that just seems to be the kind of the dialogue that we have, because I just think it weighs heavy on us. I think when we go to sleep at night, I always worry, like, I'll go to an athletic event, and I'll look around and think, what haven't I done to make this event safer? Or what can we do to make it better the next time? So, but that's always the topic in the morning is, hey, I thought about this last night, and what do you think about it? Next slide. So new this year, we last year, actually the last 2 years, hate to say it, but we have seen such an increase in escalating student and parent contact. And it's really unfortunate because the security staff really works hard to develop these relationships and develop the rapport with students. And to see this escalated level of behavior when they're trying to do that is really disheartening. So, and then we've had some situations last year where really some of my security officers really feel like they were in pretty eminent danger by the behavior of some parents that they had to have contact with. So we talked about it, and something that's been on my mind for a while, but we implemented a body-worn cameras program. And I tell you, I think it's gonna work out really, really well. We've already had some situations documented where there was maybe some question about what happened, and that camera tells the whole story. We have a very robust surveillance system in Rancho Public Schools, but it doesn't capture everything. Sometimes we get the video of it, but we never capture the audio. So this device, it's a great device. It's the one used by law enforcement. It's certainly not the cheapest, but it does the best job. And the nice thing is that the video that it captures is evidence. So should ever situation we end up with litigation, it's a documented way of capturing this audio video evidence, and it's certainly court accepted. So we use that program. I want to thank, like I said, if it wasn't for, when I was in law enforcement, I didn't use a body-worn camera, so it was a system I didn't know anything about. And again, I'm so thankful to have the people that I can rely on that have that knowledge and were able to get that system rolling for us. So next I'll talk about is the Raptor drill manager. State statute requires us to do so many emergency drills a year. And they're pretty serious about it. And it's really important for the district to document those drills to make sure that if they ever ask us, hey, did you do the drills in 2020? I want to be able to say, yeah, we did, and here's the documented proof that we did them. Well, we had something kind of developed using Google spreadsheet. It worked out fine. But my safety and security coordinator, Brian Bird, started working with Raptor and really started looking at the things that Raptor can do. It's really a robust program. I'm really amazed by it. Well, the drill manager module that Raptor has does it all for us. It helps the schools basically schedule their drills, and then it automatically releases that information to the fire marshal so they need to be notified, they get notified. It's a great tool as far as documenting when the new drills happen, and then it allows some flexibility because we know in the schools things change. So if Cleveland High School has a drill set for tomorrow and something comes up, it's easy for them to go in, manipulate that date, and it sends out those notifications automatically. So it really makes it good for the schools and it allows them to spend more time doing things they want to do rather than trying to get these drills taken care of. So we're really happy about that. And then a really important thing kind of near and dear to my heart is the upgrade to the Open Options Access Control System. So our district currently uses a system called Sandoval. It's a great system, incredibly complex, very difficult for the end user, not intuitive at all. And you've heard me say before, I'm not a tech guy. So when I saw that thing, I was like, man, I don't like this. But we worked with it. Well, it just so happens that the company that makes Vanderbilt got bought out by a major conglomerate, and that company, Acre, has an access control system called Open Options. And the nice thing is that we're able to negotiate with them, so the infrastructure cost is going to be very, very low because the controllers that we're using can be flashed in the new system, so we won't have to replace a whole bunch of infrastructure. But I got to tell you, the end user is going to love this. I like it. It's very intuitive, it's easy to use, and I think that the schools, when they're setting up their schedules for door opening and door closing, they're really going to like this, and they're going to really appreciate having it. And I describe it that it's a simpler system with added complexity, if that makes any sense. Like I said, it's got a lot of APIs, it's got a lot of interoperability with our systems, but for the end user, it looks really simple, and I think it's going to work out really well for us. So we're in the process of making that conversion now. We're going to start off with elementary schools and work our way forward. It's going to take a year-long process. It's going to be a long process, but I have to say that we got great people working on it and couldn't do it without the IT department. They have been so helpful because everything talks to the network. And every time that we try to spin up a server and get this thing going, it hits another firewall and they have to work to defeat that firewall. So really, Scott Littleton and his staff have just been great. So we really appreciate their working with us. The highlights for this year, one of the things that we suffered last year with is that Rancho PD was so short on staff that we were down to 2 school resource officers. And when you have as many students as we have, as many schools as we have, we really rely on those guys. So this year, we started off with a full complement of 4 school resource officers, a sergeant, and a lieutenant. So real happy to see that, the commitment on the part of the police department to furnish us with those SROs. The 2 new SROs are great. They seem to be very energetic, motivated to be there, so we look forward to working with them. And the next thing we're real happy about, we got some money to install some new surveillance cameras. And one of the things that, like I said, we do a real good job of having our cameras inside our schools. And one of the things that we're going to move forward with is really work on the outside of our schools, the stadium areas, some of the outdoor congregating areas. We really want to capture those because we have a lot of activity that goes on in those areas. So anything we can do to make sure that the students know, hey, listen, this isn't a blind spot. There's cameras watching and hopefully, curb any potential bad behavior. But looking forward to getting those done. Working closely with our facilities department, another great partner that I work with, getting some of these things, because it requires a lot of infrastructure changes. We're busting up concrete, we're boring, we're doing things like that. So really appreciate Melanie and her staff too. Challenges. So this is the tough part. Because talk about elementary schools, and I worry about elementary schools because I think we need to work, or I need to work harder on hardening some of those facilities. And when I have access control, doors and door hardware, some of our schools are 30 years old, nearly 30 years old. So think about it, all those push bars get worn out, the door hinges get worn out, the door closers get worn out. And, I've become, I don't want to say an expert in doors, but I've gotten to be pretty knowledgeable about doors over the past couple of years. And, that they all work in concert with each other. The door closer has to pull the door closed. The push bar needs to be able to put that spring latch out. And then the latch needs to collect that spring latch. And there's just so many different components to that door that one of those things fail, that door becomes inoperable. And then you could have a breach of security. So it's real important to us to get these things taken care of. And what we found is the last couple of years is that our vendors and suppliers are really facing some terrible supply chain issues. So we got a PO open that we can get a door fixed, get it taken care of, but we can't get the vendor to get the equipment to come out and fix it for 2-3 months. So we have to improvise. We try to do whatever we can to make that door safe and make that area free of being able to be breached, but it's complicated sometimes. So we work really hard to do that, but it has been a serious challenge for us to work on. I know that I've gotten a lot of support from Mike Baker as far as funding to get some of these things taken care of, but it's just really more of an issue of getting our vendors and our suppliers to get that equipment to get those things taken care of. So opportunities for improvement. We're always looking for different ways. Like I said, those morning conversations. We were constantly reading articles. We were probably one of the first ones to get the official report on the Uvalde incident. All of us read it word for word with heartbreak, really. A lot of times seeing what happened there, what didn't happen, what should have happened. And we try to use every situation, every opportunity to learn from it, to take our department one step further ahead to make sure we do everything we can do to keep our staff and students safe. We will always continue to fine tune all of our security measures. We're always going to do whatever we can to make things better. The training that we talked about, the hiring of the right personnel, and then on the technical side, it's so important to have the right people because everything communicates with each other. We talked about gunshot detection, what a great system it is. But what really makes it great is its ability to communicate with access control. When the gunshot detection goes off, the school automatically goes into lockdown. When the gunshot detection goes off, that image is automatically sent to your Rancho Police Department in their communication section so that they know where it's happening at. That the sensors, as they go off, if they go from one sensor to another, the camera changes with that sensor. But all these things take time to maintain. You want to make sure that they're always working because if somebody isn't on those systems continually to make sure they're working right, well, that's a problem. So that's a big challenge for us, and we always work hard to improve that. Planning for the future. So again, working with Beth and her group, they have been so great to us. We're actually working on creating a library of safety and security videos. How do you give training to almost 18,000 students and 1,000 teachers? It's really hard to do. So we had to come up with some creative ways. We've seen some videos out there. We thought they were really good. We thought, hey, let's make our own. And that's what we're doing. We're actually making safety videos that talk about run, hide, fight, what to do during an active shooter, how do you do this, a shelter in place. And they're going to be tailored to our district. And I'm really excited about that. It's a process, but we're really looking forward to doing it. And I've already been contacted with some other districts asking us how are we doing that, because they want to do the same thing. So once again, Rancho Public Schools is the innovator of a lot of safety and security issues. So we want to get those videos done, and we want to train our staff. We want our staff and students to be ready to deal with any emergency situation if it should present itself. You know, Jose Salazar, my director, and Brian Bird have been going to every school that will have us, and we give these safety briefings, and we talk about, you know, the options that are available should we have an emergency situation, because there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Every district, every school building is so different. If you were to take Callisto and look how that school's laid out, and look at Joe Harris Elementary, you couldn't get two different buildings. So a safety plan, a security plan has to be individualized to each location. It requires a lot of work, but those guys do it, and they do a great job, and they communicate with the staff, and they come up with something that works for every individualized location. And then the last is we want to continue to work with our law enforcement partners. We're so fortunate that, you know, I came from Rancho PD, and I have a lot of connections there, a lot of relationships, and they've really laid out the red carpet for us. We assist them by allowing them to train some of our facilities, which only benefits us, because the more familiar they are with our schools, the better they're going to be if they have to respond. So it works out well for the both of us. And state police has really taken great interest in us, because Jose and Brian both came from a special operations background there. And we've had state police SWAT team training in our facilities, the K-9 unit has been training in our facilities, and their bomb unit has been training in our facilities. So I just feel very fortunate that we have those relationships. Those folks are familiar with our layouts on our campuses, and like I said, we don't want anything bad to happen, but if it should, at least we know we have a good group of folks who are very familiar with how our schools are laid out. And at that point, I just want to finish with a couple things. One is, like I said, I thank some of the executive directors that are here tonight, but really, the safety and security department can't do anything without the people we work with. You know, we can't buy stuff without purchasing. We can't do a lot of things to do without facilities. Everything we do touches the network, so the IT folks are amazing. So we have some really great relationships here in the district, and I gotta say, better than any place I've ever worked before. And the support that we get from Dr. Cleveland, the board, is amazing, and even cabinet, like I said, Mike Baker has been great to work with, helps me out on a lot of issues. So I can't tell you how great it is to work here. I can't tell you how great it is to see the commitment that the safety and security staff have to our district and to our students and our staff. So just want to let you guys know, we really do appreciate everything that we get from my colleagues and from the board and the leadership.
Well, thank you. And Dr. Cleveland, do you want to give some comments before we go to the questions?
Yeah, I'll keep it very, very brief. Just thank you for a very comprehensive report. And so we chose this one because we felt like there's a lot of community interest in how are you keeping our children safe. And they have given just so much time and effort to really think through all the ways that they can reasonably do that. And when I talk to folks in our schools, generally the feedback I get is people do feel confident, and they do feel like there's folks behind them that will help them. So I think Sal, for his leadership and for his team, they are also great to work with. And anytime they have a need, they're just right on it, usually a few steps ahead of all of the rest of us. And so I thank them for their hard work. And you know, you can't learn when you're fearful. You can't learn when you're focused all the time on something bad is going to happen to you. And so that sense of security helps the learning environment, helps people feel like they can go to school and do the things they need to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, your trip.
Thank you. I got a quick question because I'm drawing a blank for Mike Baker. But before you, Mike Baker, the executive director, Mike Hyatt, who was the executive director from Rio Rancho Police Department?
Executive director for safety and security was
Before you.
Mike Tarter. Yeah.
Mike Tarter. I just wanted to start off with my questions with a comment to the parents as far as the district, because I think this hits us up at heart, but it was it was Mike Tarter that really started something special in this district as a leader, and I don't want to go without mentioning his name, and then Mike Baker and yourself, Sal. It just keeps on getting at a higher level. And I think it started with Mike Tarter. So my first question is this. If we had a terrible, terrible crisis, and I know you had the pictures of the Rio Rancho Police Department. I know you're the head of security for our district. I know the state police, and I know we got the sheriff, the county sheriff. Who's in charge if we had a terrible crisis and everybody came in?
Sure. Well, I can give you an example of what happened at a middle school last year that we responded to see at the invitation of the state police. Typically, it's going to be the first law enforcement agency on scene. It'd probably be Rio Rancho PD would assume operational command, and then they would be working with the corresponding agencies to develop plans as far as how they would secure the building. And you can just imagine all the different variables involved there. But having commanded different critical incidents in my law enforcement career, I can tell you that they become very complex. But typically, it's the first responding agency that will assume operational command.
Thank you. I want to thank you also for constantly managing staff and students. So thank you for always having the entire family in operations. My last comment is this, and this goes, the classes I've been teaching the last several years, teachers that are working on their administrative degree, when we talk about school safety, this is the most common concern that comes from teachers from all around the state of New Mexico that I work with. And that is to think about, and in this case, I'll use us as an example, the charter schools in our community. Bernalillo is our next door neighbor, Siebel is our next door neighbor, the Ask Charter is our next door neighbor, and the communication between all the surrounding neighboring schools and the process and procedures and communication with everybody and law enforcement leading the charge doesn't happen, and that's what they see as breakdowns if there was a crisis. And this is across the state. So I wanted to, again, thank you when you say that Jose, and I forgot the other guy's name, I apologize, are always going to every visit and taking them. And I would just ask that if you think about the Sabe charters or our neighboring, there are children too. And if we can invite them to the table so we have that communication and shared crisis management communication about how we react to a crisis, so we're more on the same page. Thank you.
I just want to say thanks for the work. Really appreciate looking out to the kids. You're right, it is so important. The fact to be able to give the teachers that level of confidence as well, I think that's important also. So thanks for all the hard work, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Jessica.
Just thank you for everything you do, and I know you guys work really hard on, like you said, the hiring and the recruiting and the retention of good employees, and I think that shows for the staff that you guys have, and we appreciate that, and thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you for the really thorough presentation and for all the work you do. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
I have some comments, hold on. So, looking at these last school shootings and stuff that's happened, we see officers and security that aren't going into buildings. And so with our training, you talked a lot about the training that we have done. Do you feel that we have some specific training that's helping that to know that when things go down, that we have people who are ready to act? And what are some things that we do or that maybe we could do in our district to make sure that, that training is being had? Because I do feel like I look at those situations and I think no one really knows how they're going to react until they're in that situation. It's a hard thing, but what are some things that you talk about being proactive that we can do here or are we doing here that can help with that?
Thank you, Madam President. Well, the first thing we do is recruiting, right? That's why it's so important for me when all the people that we've hired since I've been here, people I know, or that somebody that I know very well has given them a strong recommendation, because I want to have some reasonable certainty that if something should happen, that they are going to go and face danger. At the end of the year, I always send a nice email to my staff, tell them, have a nice summer, thanks for your hard work. But last year was a very different email, because what I asked them was, I said, this summer, while you're enjoying your break, I want you to look in the mirror and take a look at yourself. And are you gonna be emotionally and physically ready to go and confront danger? And if you're not, you need to really think about if you want to come back next year. Not a very nice email said, but I felt it needed to be sent. And even when our folks came back, I delivered that same message, because I want to just make it reasonably sure to them what my expectations are, what the community's expectations are, and what the leaders' expectations are. As that said, they will confront danger and they will protect staff and students. That's the expectation. That's what we demand of them. Now listen, we have some folks that are unarmed that may have to, maybe their role is gonna be escorting students and staff to a safe location or opening doors to get people out of a dangerous situation. That's fine, but there's gonna be some action on their part. We've seen it, at my years of law enforcement, it was a very simple task. It's find the noise, stop the noise. Try to keep it as simple as you can, and that's what we train our staff to do. We go over movements, working one officer at a time, two officers at a time, so they're familiar with negotiating different obstacles. But it's a very simple process. Sometimes people like to overcomplicate it, but find that noise of destruction and stop it, and that's really all we need to do.
Thank you for sharing that. And, I have to say that whenever I'm on campuses or here in the district office, like all of our security, they always have a smile on their face and they're always so kind. And that doesn't mean they're not paying attention and watching, because I know that they are, but I just really appreciate them being that way, and just kind to the community who comes in and also watching us and making sure we're safe. So Dr. Cleveland, if you have some comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one or two things. One is a question that you asked. I think is such an important for the community to know that in those emergency situations, control passes to law enforcement, and we step back because they are the ones that are trained to handle it. And so having that very close relationship with them is really very helpful, because they share the information, they keep us informed, but they then step forward. One of the things during the situation in Cleveland was just, I heard it from the state police officer, I heard it from the media, I heard it from some people in the community. That of it was, you could tell that it had been, there was planning, things were in place, people had practiced what they were supposed to do. And when you've done all those things, that people react the way they're supposed to. Whereas in a situation that we saw not too long ago, nobody knew what to do. Everybody was looking at someone else. What do I do? What do I do? They had not thought it through, they had not planned it, they were well not organized. And a situation like that, then panic ensues and people step back, they don't do their job. And so it's one of the reasons it is so important that we have that planning and the training, and that people go through it and so they're confident when they get into a situation, they know what to do and how to do it. And that makes all the difference between being successful and having a really tragic situation that is just heartbreaking, and that situation was heartbreaking. But we got so many positive comments, even from the media, who said they covered a lot of these events, unfortunately. They see a lot of this happen, and they had never seen one move as smoothly as the situation did out in Cleveland. So again, that just doesn't happen by accident. That happens because people worked hard, and people have the confidence and knowledge to do what they need to do. And it's just unfortunate when people don't have that, because then lives are at risk. So thank you. And I wanted to ask the board just very quickly, this is our first report. Does this pretty much meet your expectations? Is this kind of what you were wanting to have? Okay. We will be having generally 2 per meeting, so that we can get through all of them. But Sal, thank you. Wonderful job. Appreciate all the work that you put into the presentation.
Thank you, appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll go to approve the consent agenda. Any changes that need to take place, any questions on that?
This is Board Member Gary Tripp. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, a second.
Okay. We have a motion by Gary Tripp and a second by Jeffrey Morgan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving into our business portion, and we'll start with our first item A, to consider the adoption approval of the Series 2022 General Obligations School Bonds Notice of Sale Resolution, parameters delegation resolution, and preliminary official statement. So we have David Behill, our Executive Director of Finance, and Eric Harrigan from RBC Capital Markets here to present.
Thank you, President Galbraith, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland. I will keep my comments brief as well as my stature very good here. But we're just here to talk about the upcoming bond sale. We had Mr. Harrigan come and talk to us a couple weeks ago, the last meeting, about current assessed valuations and market conditions, that kind of thing. So without any further ado, I'll just have Eric come on up and his team.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Eric Harrigan with RBC Capital Markets. I'd also like to introduce Kaylee Weinskirch with my office. As mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we were before you just walking over the plan of finance. And so today before you is the resolution authorizing the sale of voter authorized general obligation bonds. The district will sell 20 million of a remaining 30 million of GO bonds, with the remaining 10 million to be sold next year. Also, next year in November, the district will have another GO bond election with the recent, strong growth in its tax base. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we were thinking 65 to 75. We're probably 60 to 70 million, excuse me. We're probably closer to 75 million now on that GO bond election, which will continue to maintain the $8.54 tax rate. The issuance of these bonds will continue to maintain that tax rate. Also part of your documents is the preliminary official statement. I am going to turn it over to Kaylee in just a moment just to kind of highlight the preliminary official statement. But the resolution states that the district will notice the sale of the bonds for sale on September 20th. Bonds will be bid electronically through electronic bidding platform. Investment banking firms from around the country will have the opportunity to bid on the bonds, and the lowest bidder will be awarded the sale of those bonds. And the resolution also delegates to the superintendent to award the sale of the bonds to the lowest bidder, as well as it also authorizes the district to post the preliminary official statement. As the board has in the past, it approved the form of the official statement. This is an important document, as this is the document that's presented to investors, as Kaylee will talk about in just a moment. It's important for the board to review it to make sure that there's are not any material omissions or misstatements within the preliminary official statement. So I will turn it over to her to give kind of a high level, and we are both, of course, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Eric. Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Cleveland, members of the board. My name is Kaylee Weinskirch. As Eric mentioned, I'm just here tonight to briefly go over the preliminary official statement. In your board packets, you should have a copy of the POS with you. So I'll be jumping around pretty quickly. We're just doing a very high-level view, but if you have any questions or need me to slow down at any point, just let me know. So on the very first page, we just have the notice of the bond sale. And then from there, I'm going to skip to the inside cover of the POS. And so this is where we really start to get the first look at the bonds. This page just kind of does a quick overview of some essential information, such as, when the bond sale date is, the date of the bonds, the first interest payment of the bonds, and so forth. After that, on the next page, we have an overview of the maturity structure of the general obligation bonds. And then after that, we just have each of the participants listed out underneath the issuer section. So the preliminary official statement really starts on page 2 with the introduction. This just introduces the district, and then after that, we go straight into further information about the bonds. After that, we drop into a section called COVID-19, and this is really just an overview of how the pandemic has affected the school district, NMPED, the state. It includes some updated figures about COVID cases within the state. After that, the next main section starts on page 8. We look at the New Mexico School District Enhancement Program, and then after that, we get into debt and other financial obligations. So from page 9 and onward, you'll see a range of different tables that include selected debt ratios. We look at the district's outstanding debt, the upcoming debt service requirements of the district. direct and overlapping debt of the district. And then after that, we get into the tax base of the district. You know, it does include some of those preliminary 2022 assessed valuations that Eric mentioned earlier, along with the major taxpayers of the school district. After that, we look at the tax rates, both for the school district and also the county. And we also look at the tax collections. After that, the next main section of the POS is about the district. So we go more in-depth information about the district. You know, this includes listing each member of the board. It includes some bios about some of the financial staff at the district. We talk about enrollment and the number of schools and some of the structures at the district. Continuing on, we go into the finances of the district too. So we talk about SEG payments, and then we also have condensed versions of some of the financials for the district, including statement of revenues and expenses, along with the balance sheet. So continuing on, the very last section that we have of the POS, we go into tax matters, which really just confirms the tax exempt status of the upcoming bonds. And then we also go into the continuing disclosure undertaking. This is really just a section that says that, you know, the district will continue to disclose annually their financial statements and other financial obligations that they have to bondholders and so forth. Then we talk a little bit about the rating. And then after that, we're pretty much done. There's a little bit of an update for legal matters relating to the state education system, additional matters, and then a last word. And then after that, we go into the different appendices of the POS. The first one, and the only one that is attached to the document, is the economic and demographic information for the district. So this information reflects both, you know, the state of New Mexico, the city of Rio Rancho, and the Albuquerque MSA. You know, a lot of these econ stats range from population statistics, such as, you know, the age of the population, growth in population. We also look into some financials, you know, such as the labor force, unemployment rate, effective buying income, and major employers of the city of Rio Rancho. And then after that, we would attach the legal documents and notice of sale, bond counsel's opinion, and so forth. Anyone have any questions?
Okay. Do we have any questions? Gary Tripp or Jeff Morgan?
No questions, thank you.
No, thank you. And please feel free to review this document. If you have any questions or comments on it, just feel free to forward them on to us, and we'll make sure that they get applied to the final version of the POS that we post on September 13th. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. I know, and being here with us in our meeting. Do you have anything, Dr. Cleveland? Okay. So we'll go for a motion on this.
Board Member Gary Tripp, I'll make a motion that we approve the Series 2020-22 General Obligation School Bonds. Or do you read them?
You keep going, yes.
Okay. Parameters, delegation, resolution, and preliminary official statement.
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion.
I just want to make sure that, is that okay, Lauren, or should we read there's some parentheses stuff that he did not read. Do we need to read that as well? I just want to make sure we read everything.
I recommend reading that.
Yes, okay, please, thank you.
I'm gonna start again.
Thanks.
Make a motion to approve a Series 2022 General Obligation School Bonds Notice of Sale Resolution, RRPS Board Resolution 22-001, parameters, delegation, resolution, and preliminary official statement.
This is Board Member Jeff Morgan, a second. Thank you.
All right, so the other motion is gone. So we now have a motion by Gary Tripp, a second by Jeff Morgan. And then if you could take a roll call vote for us, Kim.
Big one, two. Okay, there it is. Thank you. Vice President Morgan.
Yes.
Secretary Scott.
Yes.
Board Member Tripp.
Yes.
Board Member Tyler.
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Anything else for us? We appreciate you being on tonight. I know sometimes I always feel bad because we have so many other things, so I really appreciate you coming out to our meetings and being present with us. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and we will be back to present the results of the sale to the board in probably the late September or October.
Sounds great.
Great, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Moving to our next item, to consider the approval of Memorandum of Understanding between Sandoval County and Rancho Public Schools for the acceptance of a 2000 grant to fund the science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics STEAM lab at West Adelso Elementary. And we have Jana Chenault, our elementary school improvement officer, along with Dana Petro, our principal at West Adelso Elementary.
And one surprise guest. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. Last year, Mike Smith, I said I could have made up that name, I didn't know his name. Mike Smith wrote a proposal and brought to cabinet about having STEAM, be a related arts. And so they were able to make this happen through the use of the title funds to make this happen at Puesta. So it's unique, it's the only school that's able to do this. And he went out and found a grant in collaboration with Sandoval County. And so we're presenting to you the MOU for approval, and they're just gonna tell you a little bit about how they got here and what they're gonna do. Because he got more than just that.
Sure. Good evening, Madam President, board, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. I'm Dana Keecher, I'm the principal. And I'm now in my 5th year being principal at Puesta. And in those years prior to COVID, we tried to get a STEAM lab going. And in order for it to be sustainable and innovative, we realized that we needed to have a certified staff member in the lab. And so Mike wrote a proposal and he re-energized it. We kind of put it to bed during all of the COVID years, and now we have it. So he is going to tell you what he wants to use this money for. So this is Mr. Mike Smith.
So I don't know about talking into these. So I've been teaching at Puesta for 5 years and just wanted to do something that engages the students and gets them really excited about learning when they're at school. I wrote the proposal to Ms. Petro to try to do the STEAM lab. We've been writing grants for the last few years, acquiring materials, and they've been sitting in a portable being stored. So we wrote this proposal and she gave me the green light. So I tried to put it all together. I worked all summer on it. I came up a couple days every week with my 3 kids watching them, and we built the lab. I wrote some letters this summer trying to ask people just, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Can you help us out? I know there's a lot of people in the community and a lot of people know people. And Mr. Heil at the county reached out and said, hey, I read your letter. I'm interested. We'd love to see how the county could help. Could you write a statement of work for me? So he was able to, I wrote the statement of work, and he was able to acquire some funds. So we're going to use it to buy a classroom set of robots. I have a few. I'm going to try to buy significantly more. I need some storage shelving, so I'm going to buy some shelving for our lab. And then to have a STEAM lab for 700 kids, we go through a lot of things. We make things with them, they get destroyed. Paper goods, pom-poms, pipe cleaners, popsicle sticks, just all those kind of things. So we're going to use that for our lab. Also gonna need things like batteries, kinetic sand. I'm gonna need some slinkies in a couple of weeks. So that's what the money's gonna be used for. Sorry, that's something else. So we also are going to, in our STEAM lab, I am following the district curriculum as they teach it unit by unit, trying to give the kids some background and excitement before they get taught it in the classroom. That's one of the big things that we're trying to do. You know, when we're working with forces in motion, we're gonna work with cars and ramps, and we're gonna use slinkies for waves and try to figure out atoms and all that stuff in the lab. So they have some background knowledge when they go to the classroom, just to make it more beneficial to them.
The other money you're getting?
Sure. Oh, you want me to? Okay. So part of sending out letters to everybody I knew, there's a company in Wisconsin named Generac that I talked with multiple times over the summer. They make motors, and they're working on power systems and batteries. And after talking with them multiple times through the summer, he was able to acquire $4,500 for our lab, and that will be coming in the next couple of days. So I imagine I'll get to come talk to you guys again. So it's worked out. We've been able to acquire some funds, and it's going to be really good for our students, I think.
I have a question. In the time of COVID, is there a problem with kids sharing manipulatives? So for instance, you get a motor or something and you have 10 or 12 kids working on it. Is the hands-on approach still okay? And have you had any protests on that?
We have not. What I've been doing, each of our grade levels is doing something a little bit different, so they're using different materials. So I only see one class per grade level per day. So there's 24 hours in between each class using the materials. And I also have lots of bottles of spray that everything gets hosed down with.
Thank you.
Did
I was
that
just
answer your
curious.
question?
Yeah, I was just curious.
That's great. Now, if I remember, Mr. Smith, you started out at Stapleton,
I
right?
did, yes.
And you went into robotics there. And I remember because you had my son Skylar. And I just think it is so cool to see you just like what you've done in this world since that time. And so thank you for doing that. It's just really, you put a lot of work and effort into that. So thank you.
And I couldn't do it without Ms. Teacher letting us try out this like innovative approach that's, nobody's done at the elementary level for our district yet.
And it's huge for it to start there. It really is, because it just opens them up as they go into those next, middle school and high school to really just bring their interest. It's huge that we do it there. So thank you. Other questions for Dr. Cleveland? Did you want to?
Well, just thank you for your initiative on this, and it's exciting for our students, and it's just amazing what a little bit of money can do.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of really enhancing the instructional classroom. So again, thank you for your hard work and getting this all pulled together. It's exciting.
Thank you.
Awesome. So anything else before we go for a motion from anyone? Okay. So,
Madam Chair,
Support. Go ahead.
Board Member Tyler, I'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between Sandoval County and the Rio Rancho Public Schools for the acceptance of $2,000 grant to Sunday Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, Mathematics, or STEAM Lab for Cuesta del Sol Elementary School.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, I second. Thank you.
thank you. So we have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Jeffrey Morgan. And Kim, if you want to take a roll call vote for us?
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes,
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here tonight. Okay, our next is item C, which is to consider the approval of the 2022-23 facility use fee schedule. And we have Bruce Carver, Executive Director of Athletics, to present. And Mike Baker.
Madam President, Dr. Cleveland, members of the school board. So I'll start it off here. As you know, we recently presented a facility use agreement fee increase to the Finance Committee. Essentially, to kind of recap that, our facility use agreement fees, the recommendation was an approximately a 10% increase in our fees. It was said earlier that the fees really just go to cover our costs. We certainly don't make any money. As a matter of fact, we likely lose money on renting out our facilities. The document that was presented to you at the committee, a couple of changes I would like to note. One is your document did not have listed on it late fees. We are requesting that a 10% late fee be charged for every 30 days of unpaid fees. This does not happen on a regular basis, but we just want to have something in place when that does occur. The other thing, there was a clerical error too on the form that you received, which was on the Finance Committee, but was not, for some reason, did not get put on the sheet that you have, and that is the facility use agreement on the auxiliary high school gym and on the main gym, and that those amounts are $75 per hour and $200 per day for the auxiliary high school, and for the main high school, $100 per hour or $325 a day. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Carver.
Good evening, President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, fellow board members.
I think the 10% increase is reasonable. It was 2017/18, the last time they were raised, so it's been a while. We did open up our facilities after spring break. We opened up the outside, we didn't open up the inside. And we opened up the outside, and we did get, quite a bit of use last spring. Just on the outside, but we're open inside this year. And I'll just say this, I know the one individual complained with the public comment, and I read the complaint. I do agree with the person who complained that we should work with the community. I totally 100% agree with that. That's always been my philosophy, as Dr. Cleveland knows, down through the last 14 years, has been, we should work with the community and try to use our facilities, definitely. However, I disagree that we can waive all fees for every youth team in this district. Every youth soccer, yaffle, football, first of all, we couldn't keep them happy. We couldn't keep them in our gyms. We have our own programs have to come first. We have to take care of our programs first. And then we try to work with the community on some time that's left. But they stay quite busy. And example of the hooligans, just somebody I'm throwing out there, the hooligans are part of the MAC down here, and they rent our fields over at Rio Rancho Middle. Never complained, but they have helped us a great deal in keeping the facility, and we've actually waived a couple of weeks of their fees for their help that they've given us, dumping weeds, and helping with the fields. So I think when you come down to $50 an hour, example for a middle school gym, 2 hours a week, say you move that to $60, $120 a week. If you're practicing one time a week, that's not that bad. I don't think it's unreasonable. I think it's very fair. And I will say again, that it's not always easy because our principals have to sign off on approval. So we don't just rent facilities without their approval. And sometimes I do meet a lot of resistance from our principals because there's a lot of wear and tear on the facilities they take a great deal of pride in. And but I have to work with them, and sometimes I'll twist some arms. Right now I'm working with New Rockney football, little bitty guys. We work with Yaffle already, rented the fields out. So, it's a give and take situation. That's all I have. Any questions?
Yeah, questions, your turn.
Did you win one for the Gipper? Your problem?
We went a few
Just
years
thought,
there.
just thought I'd throw that at you, Chris. No question.
I do want to thank you for just addressing that public comment. I kind of just threw, right as the meeting started, I just brought that public comment over to Bruce just in case you might want to address it. And it does make sense. I mean, it's a lot of wear and tear in our fields. We have a lot of other groups that come in from our own, that need our facilities in our own district. So thank you for just.
In the gym, you've got electrical.
Yeah.
You've got all that. The costs keep going up. Water keeps going up outside. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And today I was kind of going through and looking at APS's fees and just different people's fees. And I do feel like, we're doing a really good job trying to work with the community. So Dr. Cleveland, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think it's just, again, this is not a profit-making venture for us. And in some cases, I don't think we break even as it is. But we understand the importance of letting our community use our buildings. But we also understand that if we can't cover costs, it comes out of our classroom and it goes to instruction. So it does need to be a give and take, but we can't, as much as we would love to, if we have more resources, just open it up and let the community use it. We can afford to do that. And I think our fees are reasonable and they do help us maintain what we have. We do not break even as it is.
All right, well, thank you. And so a motion.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, I make a motion for approval of the 2022-23 facility use fee schedule.
Board Member Tyler will second that motion.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Jeff Morgan and a second by Jessica Tyler. And can you take a roll call vote for us?
Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Scott?
Yes.
Board Member Tripp?
Yes.
Board Member Tyler,
Yes.
President Gallagher.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. All right, so we are going to get into some policies. Our first one is going to be changes to policy 906 on transportation. Is Lynn here with you tonight? Or just-
Yeah, President Garland. Lynn is working late at the Transportation Depot. I told her I would fill in for her this evening.
Sounds great. So Mike Baker here to.
Did you see her earlier, Mike? Pardon? Did I see her earlier?
I don't think so.
Sorry.
Okay, so we've gone over policy 906 transportation about a month or so ago. We did request to actually increase the walk zones, and the school board denied that request. However, there were other aspects of that policy change that fit the current statute. And so we bring those to the board essentially to stay in alignment with statute. And I think they're very minor changes, and I stand for questions.
Any questions on the site? No questions? Dr. Cleveland, do you want to add anything?
Thank you, Mark.
Self-explanatory value changes.
Yeah, that's minor changes. Thank you.
Board Member Gary Tripp, first, we don't have.
We don't need any questions.
There we go.
I actually went through mine and tried to circle and underline. Okay, yeah, the rest of these, until we get to our resolutions, will just be discussion items. So our next is policy 1008, student and school rights and responsibility, ensuring Harvard. Will present our executive director of student services.
Good evening, President Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. I bring to you tonight two policies, and I'd like to combine those if it's okay with you.
That would be great.
Policy 1008 and policy 1010. And we bring this for your first reading. We bring this because of House Bill 43 requested that, required that we make this change to these policies. What we've done is add the definition of racialized aggression to both policies. In policy 1008, it's on page 3. Racialized aggression means a violent act, bullying, hazing, harassment, intimidation, or menacing conduct based on race, and that is prohibited in our schools and in our educational environment. And then we also state the same definition in policy 1010 on page 3. It's referred to as well in policy 1008 on page 6, that the following activities are within the regulations and legal limits that the board can have authority over. And then in policy 1008, we also added to page 4. And I can get to page 4, it just prohibits it as a conduct in our schools.
Any questions from the board?
So Sherry, I just, when I read it, I'm taking it House Bill 43 had that additional comment in it, and that's what it's
It
at.
had the requirement that we add a definition and we prohibited our schools.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just got one. Real quick, on page 6, where you have the word there, you not have to give the definition there?
Since we defined it on page 3, we did not think we had to define it on page 6. Is that something you would think that we would need to add? I see where we included what bullying is. We could add it there if that's a
Yeah,
suggestion.
just a thought, that's all. You mean, go ahead, Noel.
Madam President, Mr. Morgan, and Board Member Morgan. I'm going to ratify what Sherry said. We didn't think we needed to define it in both places. We'll take a close look at it though, in turn before we bring it back to the second reading to see if there's any.
Yeah, just a thought. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anything, Dr.?
No, it's required. I would like the, we're on the policy. If we're there and we're on the policy, it's on the agenda. I would like to just just point out to the board and the community that after Q is R and S. And one is refusal to cooperate with school personnel, means a student's willful refusal to obey the lawful instructions or orders of school personnel. It's a violation of board policy, and we're seeing a lot of it, and there could be serious consequences to it. And so I would encourage people to remember that it's in the policy book, and that we intend to enforce it. The next one is refusal to identify self, and that means a person's willful refusal upon request to identify themselves can also result in some pretty serious consequences. So these are not just rules, they are policy, they're board policy, and we expect people to abide by those. We're having some problems with those right now. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to say they're important, they're in policy, we plan to take action in dealing with those who refuse either of those requirements.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's actually in New Mexico state statute. I was looking at that today, and so if someone does not tell us who they are, they can be removed.
That goes along with what Sal was saying about increased student behaviors, and we're seeing those two items. Yes, I'm glad you pointed that out. From some students not wanting to willfully identify themselves or refusing to.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else, Dr. Cleveland or Sean? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, our next is our first reading of changes to policy 1023, restraint and seclusion, and Salman Energy, our Executive Director of Safety and Security.
Back again, Madam President, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board. This is a very simple change. The NMAC 611-210 for enforcement rules of conduct made a very small change recently in section, get to it here, in section 6B. And the rule used to say within a reasonable amount of time following an incident, no longer than used to say 1 week, and they made a change to 2 school days. So under board policy 1023, we would like to make that change to be consistent with the NMAC, which is in section D2, change it from within 1 school week to 2 school days of the use of the technique. Provide the students, parents, or guardian with written documentation of the incident on a form developed under the direction of and approval by the superintendent.
Any questions from the board?
So, Sal, the first one says that verbally it's going to be reported to the parents, right?
That's correct.
And then the second step is the next day they'll get a report, probably.
Within 2 school days.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything, Dr. Cleveland, on that one? Okay, thank you. All right, our next ones. So our next 3, I will introduce the next 3, and then if you want to just go through all of them, you have all of us. so David Manor, General Counsel, we have our first reading to changes policy 208, which is meetings of the board, to I'm just going to name them all out, and you can just kind of go through them if that's okay. Policy 209, agendas and order of business for the board, and policy 211, which is minutes of the board. And David Manor, General Counsel, is presenting.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland, thanks for letting me do this real briefly. This is just a simple cleanup to conform our policies with existing practice. So the changes are minor. There are some substantive changes, but they are small. So starting with 208, really what we've changed there is we've clarified that when we adopt our annual calendar each year, that's sufficient notice for a meeting under the Open Meetings Act. And so we added the language adopted calendar. So as long as we set forth in our calendar, we're going to have a meeting on such and such a day, we don't need to do a separate notice period, a 10-day notice period, and go through the rigmarole of doing that. And that's existing practice that conforms with law. Section I, we were kind of tying our hands with respect to the month of October. For when we do our Open Meetings Act resolution, we were saying we needed to do that in October. There's no requirement that it be in October, only that it be annually. So that just frees us up. We removed the word October from that, and that way we can do it whenever it's appropriate in the year, whenever it fits your schedule and calendar. So moving on to Board Policy 209. This has to do with agendas and orders of business. Again, relatively minor changes. Under the subsection business, we're changing the policy to conform to current practice, which if we don't anticipate any controversy with written minutes from a prior meeting, then we can simply place the minutes on the consent agenda and approve them that way. It just frees up time in the meeting. So that's current practice. We just changed that. It's the only change in 209. And then finally, board policy 211. This has to do with minutes of board meetings. There were a few stylistic changes, shall to will to shall. We added some citations to the law. As far as substance goes, the major substantive changes in the last paragraph. And how this was written was, how this is currently written is that when individuals can come in and expect records or minutes at any time. And that's not the legal requirement. The Inspection of Public Records Act provides timeframes in which we can serve the public and make documents available to them, records. And so what we're suggesting is we just remove the language at any time and then just comport with the law. And the timeframes are already there in the law, so we're adding that language. Is that any questions?
Right. Questions on any of the changes from these policies? Dr. Cleveland, did you have anything?
No.
Okay, that looks good. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. Okay, for our last item K, so it's the Mexico School Boards Association call for resolutions for 2022 legislative session. And so thank you, Claudia, for putting those up. And so I'm hoping that everything that came with some things. I was writing down my list as we were sitting here, and that's why I asked Claudia to put it up, because Dr. Cleveland had everything that I had on my list right there on her slide. And so I just want to open it up for discussion, and as we go through these discussions, we just need to make sure that we give some points of what we want to be in that resolution. And then I believe Kim, are you going to be who's going to be the writer of our resolutions this time?
That's the hot root.
Yeah, we'll start to write some of these, I'm sure with help from everyone, but we'll write these resolutions up for us. And so once again, these go to New Mexico School Boards Association. They have a committee, which Gary Tripp is sitting on that committee. They will receive resolutions from all over the state from different boards, and they will choose ones that will go up to Santa Fe to our legislators, if I understand it all correctly. So let's go ahead and start. Your Tripp, what about you? What is important to you? What would you like to have on our resolutions?
Do you want a laundry list? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of the things I noticed is that teacher assistants, classroom assistants are still our greatest need right now. So I'm just wondering about, is there a way to say classroom assistants in the state of New Mexico should receive a minimum salary of $16 an hour and $17 an hour for special education classroom assistants? And the legislators should pay for it because we have money in the state of New Mexico right now. It should be added to our funding formula for all districts. I also have transportation.
Hold on just for a second.
Okay,
So
sure.
let's just kind of deal with yours. Is everyone kind of on board on having something with educational assistance in there? Now, Dr. Cleveland, that language, what would be appropriate language for us to put in a resolution in regards to educational assistance?
I think you would definitely want to, as board member Jim suggested, have a set amount. I would like honestly see a little higher than that.
That'd be great.
I think that it would be, I would like to see the state funded at what we're paying bus drivers at least. And there are many districts across the state are going with the $20 an hour for trying to get that for their assistance. But again, I stress the state's gonna have to come up with more revenue. We have a very large, Mike Chunks, how many approximately educational assistants do we have in the school district?
You can tell me how many we're missing.
I don't you just love it when I put you on the spot? We have approximately 300, a little over 300 EAs. We have approximately 300 positions available. We don't have 300 EAs. We have 30, somewhere between 30 and 40 openings right now.
So Mike,
Mike, can you come?
is there a separation between regular ed and special ed?
especially the high need.
Yeah, the high need kids,
We do have
A
a
lot of work.
separation.
Madam President, Board Member Tripp, Dr. Cleveland, yes, so there are a number of different types of educational assistants in the school. We have kindergarten EAs, any kindergarten classroom with a number of students over 15, we are required to provide an EA for that classroom. We have a limited number of EAs who fill certain positions such as library, workrooms, positions such as that. And then we have the majority of our educational assistants are in the special education area. And that's been the focus of our recruitment efforts, is typically in the special education area, because those are the students with the high needs. And where we find a lot of difficulty is with students who have severe needs, such as perhaps feeding tubes or catheters, things like that. We do pay extra to those educational assistants. We give them assignment pay. We call it acute care pay. So those educational assistants do receive additional pay. I do appreciate the thought to increase the pay, and I do think, and I want to commend the legislature for moving the salary up to $15 an hour. Unfortunately, at $15 an hour at 190 days, it's still only about $20,000 a year. So when you look at the annual salary that an educational assistant makes, it's still fairly minimal. And the feedback that I get quite often is that salary is about half of what someone would need to earn a living in the metro area. So they'd have to work at least 2 jobs.
Mike, can I ask just a clarifying question? Do you know, just off the top of your head, what average benefits cost a month for an individual, not even for family, but just for an individual? I know that many of our educational assistants work for benefits. What percentage does that take out of their paycheck?
Well, so an unfortunate side effect of raising everyone to $15 is that all educational assistants, all custodians, et cetera, moved up. So there are 4 tiers in the NIMCS system. And it depends on your salary from 0 to approximately $15,000 is the lowest percentage that the employee has to pay. So it's based on how much the employee pays, how much the employer pays. And I'm sorry I don't have those exact figures right in front of me. But so the lowest tier is 0 to about $15,000. Then it jumps up from there to the next tier. Unfortunately, what happened is by raising everybody to $15 an hour, it also pushed all of them up into the second tier. So previously, they were all down in the first tier and were paying the lowest percentage as an employee for benefits. Now they are in the second tier, so they are paying a higher percentage as an employee for their benefits. And I would be happy to get that information for the board so that you can see just how much. And there is an increase, just so that the board is aware, there is an increase October 1st to everyone's benefits, as there is pretty much annually and has been for several years. There's about a 6% increase. And I think that's correct, Mike. I think it was 6% increase. Thank you very much. So, and it really depends. It depends a lot on which plan you're on, because we have Cigna, we have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we have Presbyterian. And then, of course, in all of those, we have low and high. But I will tell you that if you make less than $15,000, you pay 25% of the premium. If you make $15,000 to $19,999, you pay 30% of the premium. So I misspoke, we moved them all up to the third tier because they all make over $20,000 now. 20,000 to 24,999, you pay 35% of the premiums. So a lot of people who were paying either 25 or 30% are now paying 35% of the premiums. And anybody who makes $25,000 or over, which would be all the teachers, et cetera, pay 40% of the premiums. The district, of course, pays the other amount. And it's quite a long table, so I'm not gonna go into all the different amounts,
So
but
on 20,000, a person, classroom assistant takes home 13,000 because he puts 7,000 into benefits.
correct,
Just that one thing.
yeah. I will tell you, so for a teacher, I will tell you, taxes and benefits come to about 40%, and ERB come to about 40% of your paycheck.
It's just disheartening, and some, I don't know if this is true or not, so I don't have the data, maybe you could share it, as you check into it, but I heard in some cases that they didn't see a raise in it all. That with the amount that went up, the increased cost for benefits ended up pretty much just being a wash. I don't know if that's true or not, because I haven't sat down and done the numbers, so I'd be good to do it, but, the bottom line out of all of it, and that's where I was going with it, is now they're paying more of their benefits. They did get an increase, but it maybe didn't mean a whole lot. Here's the reality for the school districts across the state, I think, is that what we're finding is people are not gonna work for that anymore. And so it's very hard to think we're gonna fill those positions if the state doesn't step up and do a little better job in funding those positions. And so we're going to have to kind of rethink how we do educational assistance. Some districts are using some different models and beginning to eliminate those positions because they cannot get them filled. But we do have a legal obligation to meet the requirements of the IP. And we're not being able to do that right now, when we can't fill these positions. So it is important. We hope we'll find some, and we know the folks who do the best with the educational assistance salary are those who do not need benefits. But unfortunately, many of the folks who work in those positions do need benefits. And in fact, that's the only reason they're really working, is to secure benefits for their family. So it's a need, it's not a Rio Rancho need, I want to stress that. It's a state of New Mexico need. But we really do need to look at the work that these folks do. And, they work with some of our most vulnerable children. And so hopefully we can get the state to look at some adjustment in compensation in order to get folks to do the job.
Okay.
It's an important job.
Yeah, so on that one, so I think we want a resolution that's gonna talk to, so a pay increase of at least $20 for our EAs, due to the benefit costs and also that we need them for IEPs. If we could put something maybe with those in it and everything else, that was kind of gathered in that, but I think that those would be the main. Does that sound good for that one?
Yeah, and I don't know, because I don't know if Mike could help Cam, but the tier system is interesting. I mean, maybe they can make adjustments to that tier system too. So maybe they don't go 20, but they work on the adjustments of the tiers. Maybe there's a different percentage. I don't know.
Well, those tiers are set by NIMSIA, but that wouldn't be a bad resolution to,
Yeah.
Adjust them up.
Or ask them to adjust
certainly
them.
propose and say maybe there's a different tier system or there's an adjustment to that tier system for lower,
And
for some of our employees who don't earn, you could adjust that down a little bit so that you're not having such a harsh impact when somebody does get a raise, to Dr. Cleveland's point, that it doesn't mitigate or negate that raise that they just got.
And if we have the resolution in there, the NIMSIA executive director sits on the New Mexico School Board's board. So she'd be hearing the resolution next month, if we had it ready by then.
I did capture that, and I guess my question is, would the tier system be a separate resolution as opposed to part of the EA resolution?
Yes,
Because,
yeah.
and just to your point, Kim, I think that's important because I think that has an impact on a number of our employees, our bus drivers, our, even at $20 an hour. I think it still has an impact on our bus drivers, our custodians, our secretaries, all who are still, being impacted at a high level by that higher premium amount.
Okay. You want to do your next one?
Well, the next one has to do with school safety, and speaking of Sal's report and the workshop earlier, but not just funding for school safety, but maybe wrapping our heads around something specific that schools need in the area of school safety. So the legislators are supporting all schools. So that's pretty broad, and that's kind of the way Gary operates. I don't have specifics, but maybe in the area of school safety, is there a need for schools to have this or that or this, and then is there a way of the legislators supporting that and funding it in the area of school safety? That's just a thought.
I don't know, I could see, maybe Sal wants to come up, but as far as asking for a resolution, my only thought is that each district's so different as far as that goes. So I could see an increase in funding, just, districts needing, everyone just needs different things. So, we're looking at this huge system, but perhaps someone else would need that.
Several years ago, Mike and I were sitting in Santa Fe at a safety meeting, and Mike had an idea of regional rural schools needing cameras, and big schools need cameras. I'm just trying to wrap my head about, in the area of school safety, if there's something that legislators could buy into.
Yeah, Dr. Clinton, go ahead.
One of the things I hope though, that we would look at again was realizing that one size does not fit all. And that local school boards are the best determiners of what that money would be used for. So, I would hope that what they do is would give us a certain amount of money and then let that local board and community decide how best, whether it's cameras or whether it's other kinds of security devices. But I have a lot of confidence in that local community and board deciding where that money would best be spent. But I do think there should be a pot of money that really, to your point, that goes for school safety, and that the districts have an opportunity to use that money to improve the well-being and safety of their children. But I would hope that it would be a little more flexible to let each individual community decide how to do that, or whether it's cameras or whether it's something else.
So is everyone on board as far as having funding for security? Kim, as far as looking at that one, is there more that you feel like you need from the board on a resolution for that, as far as writing it?
It's going to be interesting to write just because it's so broad. But I'll take a whack at it and see what we can come up with.
I think Dr. Cleveland's list says it best: increased funding for school safety, staff and equipment. I think that just keep it as simple as that.
Yeah.
And it gets to where board member Tripp is trying to go.
And with the point about local control.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, well, and I think you could put, as every district has unique needs for their district, something like that along those lines. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
So good, okay. All right, carry on.
We got a little funding formula for what we used to have for elementary PE or music or homeschoolers participating in school districts. So going back to the CTE funding formula, we can include within the funding formula, a continuous revenue stream for schools that have CTE programs. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take it, come on up, Mike, if you want to address that.
I have an idea.
It's good. I like ideas this late at night, so.
Yeah, so
in the SEG, we gotta be kind of careful how we throw things in the SEG, but, for example, I'll just use one example, ancillary staff. So the more ancillary staff that we have, that increases our SEG. So if a school district, for example, let's say they have security guards, and let's say they have armed security guards, maybe they can give us a unit or two or designate it somehow for those schools that are serious about security and or are willing to get into security. What would happen is that you could, in the SEG, put, let's say you have 10 security officers, maybe that equals 10 units or something, and that would equate into dollars. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So this is to make our security, the one that we're looking at for security, make it not so broad. So using the SEG, a unit, or, so say that again.
Well, we would ask the legislature to maybe have some type of category within the SEG and to assign units for security guards and maybe more units for armed security guards. And in this manner, if any school district, whether it be a rural community, whether it be a city, that essentially the state would maybe not pay for the whole thing, but at least that the revenue would be there specifically for security. So right now, our security is essentially paid out of the bottom line SEG. We don't have any specific funding for security. And in this manner, there would be specific funding for security.
Here's the challenge with it, and it goes to the same discussion with CPE, is that when you run it through the formula, then we'll get less than anybody else, and we'll be at the bottom of that. When it's categorical, whether it's for CPE or for safety and security, then you set a certain amount, and because you assume that the cost is the same for any district for certain things. For example, in terms of instructional materials, the textbook that we just got for English costs the same in Gallup as it does in Rio Rancho. The book costs the same amount of money. There are some other things though, like supplemental materials that you build in for higher need populations, and I think we all support that as long as the basic cost has been covered. Categorical has fallen in disfavor in our state over the last many years because they want everything to go through the formula so that some districts get higher percent than others. And for some things that makes sense, particularly things that are related to high-need kids. But other things it doesn't, in my opinion, make sense because they cost exactly the same. They're fixed costs. So the other thing, though, that when you run it through the formula, you have legislators who speak on the other side of it, is they think it just gets lost. It's in this big pot and they don't know where it goes. And so when you have a categorical, it's very transparent where that money is spent. For example, when instructional materials was totally separate, it's very easy to tell exactly how much you spent on textbooks. If you just went to that line item and you could see it. So some of our legislators who are saying they would like more transparency and seeing the money so that it doesn't get pushed off into other areas. Categorical makes more sense because you will see this is how much you get and it stays in that fund and can't be used for anything else. And I see safety and security and CPE be good examples of why it would be good to keep them separate because then you have an opportunity to see exactly where the money goes and it will not be diverted. And one of the things some of you've heard legislators say, we put it in the pot and we have the intention and then the district spends it on something else. Well, usually what the district spends it on, that something else is generally, guess what, fixed costs that the board didn't fund. The state didn't fund. So they spend it on salaries because they get enough money to make salaries. So it just, that'll be the discussion, categorical versus running it through the SUG. But there are arguments both sides. And certainly, New Mexico has been very strong in trying to fund our highest need districts at a higher level, and because they have high need children. And we certainly understand and support that. Our argument is not everything fits into that kind of a formula as effectively. Transportation does not, The fuels cost the same, the books cost the same for instructional materials. Equipment for CTE is gonna cost the same. So but be prepared for that conversation, because there's some that'll say, we'll run it through the formula. Some of you have talked to key legislators, and what's the first thing they say? It's in the formula. It's there, it's in the formula. Well, it's not. And so by the time we pay our salaries and our benefits, which are mandated, our insurance, which is mandated, and you go our fixed costs for utilities, which we pay regardless, we pay what they cost. When you get down to it, there's not much discretionary money left. And there isn't enough money to fund CTE or some of these other things without it. When we looked at the Education Commission of the States data, we were one of 6 states that didn't pay for additional funding for CTE. Well, the reason is it's expensive. And there's some costs associated with it. You have to have a revenue stream to replace equipment. Just like we're struggling with right now in IT. We use bond money to buy Chromebooks. Guess what? They're all running out. Where does the next money come to replace those Chromebooks? So that's just, some of the stresses, but just that will be the conversation. So I just kind of want the board to know in advance that will be some of the conversation you will hear and discussions that you will have with other board members and certainly with legislators. It's just hard to be fair to everyone. And I think that's a challenge. I think our folks really try to be fair to everyone, but it's just not an easy thing to do.
Dr. Cleveland, I think what would be fair to every community in the state is to have a CTE program, because there's nothing more valuable to someone than the ability to support themselves. And if we could send our children out into the workforce so that they're able to support themselves and their families, it would be the greatest gift we could give in New Mexico. So, and we're not alone. The demand is all over this state for career technical training. And I just saw somebody texted me, in fact, during this meeting and said, skip algebra 2 and give us practical math so we can balance our budgets and plan our financial life. Those are the kinds of things that we're seeing in great demand. And I like what you put in here about increasing or creating a revenue stream identified for the ongoing CTE program across the state. I think that's exactly what we need to be advocating for.
Well, and so I absolutely agree. And I think, again, different communities do different things. And so the skills may be different. And so I remember when we were talking about this sometime back with Senator Sosi, we talked about the importance of having welders out on the farm and ranch. All of your equipment you're dependent upon doing that, and how hard it is to find someone to come out there and do that work if they don't live in those communities. So it may vary, but again, there is need for CPE in every community, in every region of our state. They just may look a little different in the oil patch versus perhaps a rural agricultural area, but it's needed for all of them. So much of our irrigation work today, our huge systems, are dependent upon having highly qualified electricians. Nice people don't think about that. You're very much aware that when we asked Intel what was one of the things they needed, they said pipe fitters. That had never dawned on me that we have a sea of pipes under Intel. So every community has different needs, but all communities need CPE. And I agree. Every child in New Mexico should have the ability to get those knowledge and skills. But on top of that, it's a really good investment for the future for our state. Will grow our state's economy. So it's one of those things that's an investment in the future of our state. So anyway, we're gonna keep working on it.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we're good on the CTE.
I think so. We probably in the resolution don't want to go there with categorical versus saying,
Yeah, no, I
right?
agree. Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, after hearing both sides, let's just try to stay clear on that, on the security and on the CTE. I like how it's written up, as Maureen said, Dr. Cleveland, seeing if you can kind of use that course to create a joint resolution. That would be great. Okay. All right, what is that?
Instructional materials.
Instructional materials, okay.
That's it.
So on the instructional materials, my thought, and it goes along, that's exactly what was on my list. I think everyone, I think with the transportation, that both of those need to be pulled from, I don't know how we put that, maybe we just put full funding, but they need to be pulled out of that funding formula. Is there an appropriate way to say that?
Well, and to live up to the decision rendered by Judge Staples and I realize it would be his lawsuit, which said the state would pay both of those, and that was removed.
Yeah. So any thoughts on the instructional materials?
Is that one resolution perhaps that we?
I think that we could create that as one resolution. I think since it's really the same problem, even though it's with two very different aspects, like it's really different. Yeah, I think we could create one. Okay with that.
It'd be a different approach to talking about transportation instead of recycling the same one we've done every year.
I agree. I agree. Okay, Jeff, did you have anyone to add to the list?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was going to follow Gary. Thank you, by the way. The other two, I want to, somebody made it real clear. We need to thank Ethan Mexico. We need to do that first for what they've done already. And then my second one was improved funding for the maintenance of existing facilities. We hear that all the time about how much that needs to be. So.
Yeah, I like both of those. I agree with the things, and I appreciate you putting that on your list, Dr. Cleveland, too, because I hadn't thought about that, actually. I think that's a great resolution to have, so thanks, Jeff, too, for bringing that back up. So are we all good on the thanks to the Mexico legislator? Okay, and as far as improved funding for maintenance of existing facilities?
Yeah.
Is there anything specific that we want to say on that?
One thing I would like for them to consider is to consider changing the way they allocate funding for maintenance projects, because as they currently score potential projects for funding, the worse you are, then the better off, then the more likelihood of getting funding you are. However, we all know that as you allow buildings to deteriorate, the prices for fixing those things actually compounds. And so if we addressed our infrastructure of our school facilities at an earlier time versus waiting till they are very deteriorated, it would be more economical.
We have not had an advocate for school maintenance money to go to school districts and approve that, since, venerated on the Speaker of the House. That's been a good number of years. And we do definitely need that. I don't know, Mike, have you given any thoughts, Melanie, to how would be the best way to deal with that? Would it be, do an improvement to the SB 9 process? Would it be, what would be the best way really to look at improving maintenance dollars for existing facilities? And you are so right, because we lack the funds to do it. By the time we get around to figuring out how to pay for things, the cost is far above what it would have been if we could have addressed those problems earlier.
Yeah, so President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the school board. I think the problem that a lot of districts faces is this notion of deferred maintenance. And that is, we're always trying to pay for more teachers in the classroom. And so the little money that we have, we defer that maintenance on that building. And that building just deteriorates. So one of the things that all school districts are required to do, as we just went through it, is the 5-year master plan. And one of the things with that 5-year master plan is an actual dollar figure on what it would take to get a particular facility up to a particular level. And so certainly the PED could take a look at your 5-year plan. They know exactly, I shouldn't say exactly, but there's a dollar figure that the architects put in there to get your facilities up to a grade A. And so what they could do is they could say, okay, we will pay 10% or 20% or extra, or whatever the calculation would be, in order to take care of your facilities. This way, that particular funding is specifically tied to maintenance of a facility. And it would be equal across the board.
So PED, like, we have to do that 5 year,
Yes.
and not just from PED that comes from, or is it come from that?
That's, I believe I'm not sure if it's a PED rule or if it's an actual statute.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying.
But in any regard, not only us, but everybody's required to do that. And they're required to do that every 5 years. So there's already a current mechanism in order for us, in order for them, if they want to provide funding. They know how much all districts need. And so kind of the rub, Rio Rancho is in a good situation on one hand because our community, they increase taxes upon themselves in order to care for our facilities. But not all communities do that. And so the communities that don't upkeep their facility actually get on the list from PSFA and actually receive state funding for that.
So I just thought that might be an interesting way to start it, or something like that, is putting something in there about that 5 year plan.
Although, isn't there an incentive? I vaguely remember, I'd have to look it up, but I think there's some kind of an incentive that comes through the state for districts that have SB 9 in place. Is there not? Am I?
Yes, that is correct. So if you have SB 9 in place, you do get SB 9 match.
Okay.
But it's, we're not talking, we're talking small dollars.
It's complicated.
Yeah, small dollars in comparison to something that we need. We need tens of millions of dollars a year for maintenance, not $4 million.
Okay. Anything else on the maintenance, Melanie? Anything else that you feel like we got things covered pretty? Okay. I don't want you to make up, that's why I was like, you can just give me a thumbs up. Yeah. Okay, anything else on that one? Okay, Yuri, is there anything else that you wanted to add to the list?
No, I think Dr. Cleveland has put together a comprehensive list.
So we're pulling off of that one, so is there any specific one on there that we haven't hit that you feel like we need to hit?
No, I think I'm happy with the list.
Okay. And then Jessica, anything else? Okay, so this is what I have that we actually pulled out. So I have raises for educational assistants, change to, and I don't know if I have, so change to the tier system for benefits. Okay, funding for security, funding for CTE, thanks to the New Mexico legislator for raises, improved funding for maintenance of existing facilities.
And also categorical funding for transportation and
Yes.
social security.
I would like to just suggest that we use Dr. Cleveland's list and everything that's on it.
Okay, everyone, why don't you all take a look at that? I think it pretty much has everything that we have talked about. Adjunct training. Okay. Is there anything else does that list look good as it is? Okay.
The only thing that's not on there is the change to the
That's right.
To the tier,
funding to the tier.
for the tier, so we will add a tier.
That's right.
And do you want early childhood, which is on the list?
That is on the list, early childhood. Yeah,
That's why I'm saying we should use Dr. Cleveland's list and
that's
then add
true.
just the things that were just added.
Yeah,
Okay. They're very close to the same list.
that's right.
They are. So, yeah, so really all that we're adding is that change to the tier system for benefits. And then hopefully just our conversations is enough to get them to put onto the resolution. Anything else?
We'll give it a try.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we actually need to vote on this. We need to, so I think we could create a motion with Dr. Cleveland's, well, we could just go, I could just create it and.
This is Secretary Norton Scott, and I move that we accept the resolutions that Dr. Cleveland presented and use the additional ones that have been discussed here tonight as our jumping off point for our resolutions,
Which includes the tier system.
which includes the tier system.
You need to announce that.
Well,
You
I
need to say
think,
it, right?
yeah, she just did. Is that good enough? It's kind of a hard one with resolutions as far as creating a motion for that.
Madam President.
We're so grateful to have you.
Yes. I guess I just have a procedural question. Will
the resolutions come back to the board for approval? Or are you like pre-approving?
No, so what we've done in the past is that those resolutions are written and then we have them in our next board meeting. I believe we have one board
The
meeting.
problem is we don't have a board meeting prior to the due
I
date.
think we have one.
It's on the same
One
day
day,
they're due.
don't we?
No, they're due the same day we meet it.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Did this give up?
So could I suggest that they send out to us, and if anybody has a burning problem with them, we let Kim know.
We We can do that. The other thing that we can do, and we have done in the past, is because when we were having a board meeting, we were a couple of days off, and Joe Ian gave us permission to submit them a day or two late. I suspect that he would do that again, given that it's just the way the calendar falls for a board meeting. So that's the other option, would be to approach the School Boards Association and ask for a couple of days delay in getting them in, given that the board would not meet until that time.
The deadline is the same day as your meeting. It's 5 o'clock that afternoon, the afternoon of the 12th of September, which is the day of your board meeting. I think what we could probably do, and I think this is what we did last year, is go ahead and send them the draft resolutions so they have them. And then you folks take action at the board meeting, and then we just contact them and say, okay, these are the ones we're submitting and these are the ones we're not, if you decide not to submit some of them and that sort of thing. Would that work?
They will take them the next morning.
Okay.
I'm sure that they will, but I will verify that with Joe to make sure.
Yeah, I know
Now
he didn't
we
love
do
that we
it
did it that way last year, but so I think look into a draft. So what does that change for us?
So can I make a motion to draft the resolution we discussed?
Yeah,
Have that ready?
yeah, I think you could just do a resolution that you want, what you discussed drafted, and that the board will approve it at the next meeting.
So board, do I need to second this now?
So we probably should remove our original motion.
All right, I'll remove my motion and defer to Board Member Tyler.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we draft resolutions as discussed tonight for the New Mexico School Boards Association call for resolutions for 2022 to be finalized at our next meeting.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, I second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Jeff Morgan. And Kim, if you could take a roll call vote for us.
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Trick,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler,
Yes.
President Galvin.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Lauren. And thanks to everyone for taking some time so we could do those resolutions. I know it's been a long day for everyone. So going into advanced planning, we have September 2nd, 2022 will be our half day of classes for students. And it's going to be a staff professional development in the afternoon. September 5th will be a Labor Day holiday. Then September 12th is that deadline for the submissions for these resolutions. Also on the 12th, we'll have our board meeting at 5:30 here. On the 26th will be audit committee at 4:30 in the training center. Also on the 26th will be a regular board meeting here at 5:30. And once again on October 5th, and Dr. Luna, I'd love to hear how these days end up going, but we'll have a half day for classes for students, and then we'll have a staff development day and planning. October 6th and 7th, fall break, and October 10th will be another meeting here at 5:30.
Okay, if I may add one?
Yes, please.
Sorry about that. We postponed, as you probably know, the audit committee
Yes.
meeting, and that will be next Monday, the 29th at 4:30. We moved it very late and I didn't revise the list.
Okay. So there will be an audit committee meeting on Monday, the 29th at 4:30. Anything else on advanced planning? Okay. We will now consider a motion to convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property or water rights by the public body, specifically for the superintendent to inform the board about potential property transactions as permitted under section 10-15-1H8 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act.
This is Board Member Tyler, so moved.
Board Member Scott, second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jessica Tyler, a second by Noreen Scott, and Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us on this?
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler.
Yeah.
And President Galvin.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. And you will need to report out
Yes.
of the session.
Okay.
When you get done, just come back out and
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. That was
You made August 29.
Oh, wait.
Okay, yes.